On this episode, sometimes you need to pivot. Hey everybody, this is the Quarter Show, and show number 50, by the way, number 50. Got this, keep coming at you with more content. So we're pumping these things out. We got a lot to talk about. We've written down a whole bunch of shows, so no shortage of content on the way. We're talking about the pivot today. And, sometimes you need to pivot. And, in sales, you can get yourself so stuck on a deal. You ever get to the point where you're so stuck on a deal and you have a deal and it's a certain dollar figure and everything is the way you want it to be, and you're like, why can't I just get this closed? And you sort of you hang on to this deal and you're not willing to let go of the deal, and you're not willing to change the deal because it's exactly the way you want it to be, but that may not be the way the prospect needs it to be in order to get it done. And so what you end up doing is you end up being stuck in time. Time gets frozen and you keep pushing on this thing that isn't quite right, and here you are hanging on to this thing trying to make something that isn't quite there, and it doesn't quite align with the prospect. And so it's kind of like, what are you doing? You're now waiting on this perfect deal, and you're trying to close this perfect deal the way you want it to be, as opposed to making a good deal today. My dad used to always say, in his business, he used to say, make a good deal today, right? Get a good deal done today. Don't wait for the perfect deal tomorrow, because tomorrow never comes. And I think that's really important. That's part of our culture here. We talk about this all the time, and that's where the pivot comes in, right? So you're pushing up against this deal, and let's say you have this deal for X amount of dollars, and it's a certain way, and it's a certain size, and all the different things, and it's perfect in your universe, but it's not perfect for them, and it's not what they need. So you need to pivot. You need to pivot. You need to come back in. You need to change up the deal. You need to change up the price. You need to change up the package. And amazingly, and this just happened to one of our guys today, Spencer was working on a deal, and this morning it closed, and he was asking for an amount that was it was twice what they settled on. So he changed the package, he changed the deal, and he came in and the deal closed this morning. And he called me today and he said, you know what I did? And I said, what? And he said, I did what you said. And because I talked to him yesterday, I said, stop hanging on to this deal. You're hanging on to this deal. You're spending all this time on this deal. I said, you don't have time for this. You need to get a good deal done. You need to wrap this deal up, get what they need, look at what they actually need, what they actually can afford, where they're at on this deal, close it, get it done, and move on. You've got other things to do.
Yeah, and for me, it's been a bit of a strange experience as a salesperson.
Yeah.
And I've watched Robert do it a few times with clients of mine, with me on the phone, and it's been slightly surreal for me. But here's what I observe. What happens is there's some sort of can't get past this budge point, can't get past some like budgetary concern or whatever, whatever's come up, right?
Yeah.
And I've spent time selling a thing that I believe in. I've spent time selling either a package of things or whatever I've been selling, and I believe in it, and it just isn't going. So the feeling internally for me is, if I pitch something else, I'll come across as not genuine for what I actually believe.
Sure.
So that's been the problem for me, and I've learned from it, and I've been able to pivot.
Yeah.
But as a salesperson, you might experience something like that. So maybe comment on that, because I'm telling you that's the feeling that's come up.
Well, I mean, for you and your universe. So the client has a need or a problem or something you need to solve. Obviously, that's a big part of our job, right? We're here to solve problems, and you package it up, and then you essentially get sold on what you're selling. You lock in and say, this is the thing, mm-hmm. and then you try and force that in, but then that thing becomes, let's say something about it is just not quite aligned and hooked in, and to me at that point, you need to reassess what is appropriate for the client. So when you look at it for like there's an outness involved. Like the client, if you're selling a house, it's like, well, look, they've listed out 5 bedrooms and 3-car garage and all the different things. And the truth is that might be $785,000 in your given market, right? That might be a $785,000 house. And the truth is their financing and everything else only shakes out to, let's say, 580 or 570 or whatever it is. You need to pivot, right? You need to pivot in order to make it done, because it's like something's not totally aligning for the client. And that means it's like, okay, good, I know you guys really want this, but here's where we need to take it, and here's what we need to do, and then you need to pivot and take them in a different direction. They were really sold on this house. You were really sold on this house. Now you could try and force the issue and get the $780,000 house done, which is probably not going to happen. Or you can pivot and figure out how to take the data that you now have, that you know about this cycle related to their pain point, problem, motivation, whatever they need, specifically that's tailored to them, and pivot, right?
So it's not that I necessarily have to stop believing in what I'm selling or what I've sold or what I've been sold on.
You just have to recognize that it's a misfit.
Right, it's a misfit, or look, ultimately we are going to do package X.
Yeah.
Right, but right now we've got to get something productive for the client done.
Yeah, here's the thing, is that, that means maybe initially you come in smaller, or just even different. It doesn't have to be smaller, by the way. The pivot doesn't mean smaller. It just means different. Maybe you have to come in different, and then you come back around and you close on something. I've pivoted bigger, by the way. I've gone from small and pivoted to big. Right.
It's true.
And so because maybe the small doesn't solve the problem. The small thing doesn't do it.
And the client knows it. They stick on the back. They know. They can see it. They go, this is...
If it's too small...
And they won't necessarily tell you.
Yeah, they won't necessarily tell you. It's too small, and they know this isn't going to solve my problem. We're not moving forward. So that could be the thing, and you recognize that, and then you go big on a big strategy. For us, a strategy. We go big on a big strategy that encompasses their entire problem, and now they're fully engaged. They're like, yes, this is what I need. And you go close them on that. I've had deals start where they were like, $6,000, some small $6,000 deal, and turn into a $100,000 deal. Mm-hmm. Pivoted to a $100,000 deal and close it for that. So the thing is that you have to look at it and say, if the deal is stuck in any capacity, are you hooked in and so stuck on what you're selling, even though it's not going, that you're unwilling to look at where you may need to pivot. So and then it gets stuck and doesn't go anywhere.
Also, the client doesn't necessarily originate and tell you anything, so you have to
solve
stuck on this thing.
You have to solve this.
It's full on observational, because the conversation might have gone, that sounds great. Client says, that sounds great. I think that's exactly what we need. And then for some reason there's you feel like you got a communication somehow or whatever. You can't get a hold of them, you can't get it done, you can't get it closed. Or the conversation sometimes goes sideways, so you have to fully observe.
You do.
What's happening.
Ask questions. Ask questions and keep digging, and then recognize the fact that, you know what, I need to pivot. I need to pivot on this thing, because what I pitched, the thing that I think is perfect, is actually not perfect. Is actually no longer perfect. I need to pivot, and this is actually bigger or smaller. This is the thing that they actually need in this unit of time. This is the thing that's most applicable to their situation. And then you turn around and you pivot and you pitch that. You delete the other proposal. You say, get rid of this thing, throw it in the trash. Let's get the new proposal out and say, here's what we need to pivot on. Here's what we need to do. Like 100% of the time, it's going to close. It's like every time. As long as you stay on the right item for the client every single time, and you focus on the sort of authentic nature of like, this is the right thing for the client. And look, 1 month ago, the right thing may have been a little different, or maybe your estimation of effort was a little off in terms of what was right. But right now, in this unit of time, you need to make sure you have the right thing in front of them at all times. And situations change by the day. Data internally, they had a meeting, they talked to so-and-so, different things. You have to stay in tune with this and know when to pivot. And when you pivot, you make the right move, you send a proposal. Don't try and jam things down their throat. That's not the right thing. If it's not perfect for them, don't do it. Pull it off the table, pivot, and deliver what's right for them and what's going to actually get it done. And circle back later. Maybe that bigger or smaller thing is going to be the right thing later. Right now, you need to focus on not what you think is perfect, not what you necessarily want them to do because you think it's perfect. Really pivot to what actually is what they need to do and what actually is perfect for them. And the probability of them moving forward becomes really high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's an important lesson. We actually dealt with that today. We deal with, we have it written on the whiteboards, in big words. In fact, it says pivot on there because it comes up so frequently, and I think a lot of people forget that. You just end up trying to like push a boulder uphill over and over and over again. And
I've been noting down a few boulders as we've been talking.
A couple boulders here, and then you keep thinking, oh, the deal's dead. Oh, it's not going anywhere. It's like maybe it's not going anywhere because you're not assessing the situation correctly, right? Yep. Pivot. Look at your pivot. And make those pivot actions, and you'll free it up and get those deals done. Okay,
cool.
Hope you enjoy that. That was episode 50, and we're gonna push on to 100. Have more coming at you. All right. Subscribe to the channel. Like it if you like the episode, and of course follow us on Twitter @TheQuarterShow. Thanks.